Hello, I'm R.A. Spratt, and I want to welcome people joining us this week on the Yoto podcast platform. Now, just so you know, most of the bedtime stories I tell here are standalone stories. But over the last year, we have been dipping in and out of the epic story of Odysseus, the hero from ancient Greek mythology. And this week, I'm going to be telling the second last installment of that tale. So if you can jump in right here, that'll be fine. I'm sure you'll pick it all up. But if you did want to go back to the beginning and start from the first episode, you can search back through the episodes. The first episode's called Odysseus, as told by Nanny Piggins, and it dropped on January 8th, 2025. Or you can go back and listen to any of the other episodes. You're going to find fairy tales, myths, legends, and mysteries. I hope you enjoy them all. Now let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Bedtime Stories with me, R.A. Spratt. All right, now I have been promising to do a story about Diwali, the origins of the festival of Diwali, the festival of lights that's celebrated in India and by Indian people everywhere. I was inspired when I was in Singapore and I went to Little India in Singapore, and it was at the Diwali time, the decorations were all beautiful, and I thought, I should do a story about that. But it's so long and awesome, the story of Rama and Sita and Rama's brother, and it's just such an epic tale. It sort of took me a while to learn about it. I did do that story a couple of months ago about Rama and the unbendable bow. That was part of me doing research for this. But it is Diwali this week, so I thought, oh, crikey, I better just sit down and write a story. And of course, it's a big, long story, an interesting story, so I'm going to split it over 2 episodes. But anyway, for those of you celebrating Diwali this week, I know a lot of you won't actually be listening to it this week when I record it, but anyway, happy Diwali. But anyway, so here's the story. Well, at least my understanding of the story of Diwali, which is really Nanny Piggins' understanding of the story of Diwali, and she is a flying pig who's lived most of her life in a circus, so please take everything she says with a grain of salt. Here we go. Rama and the Origin of Diwali as told by Nanny Piggins. When Derek, Samantha and Michael returned home from school, they found their nanny hard at work in the kitchen, making batter. "Yum, is it pancakes for afternoon tea?" asked Michael. "Goodness, no," said Nanny Piggins. "For a start, these are not pancakes, they're crepes. And secondly, they're not for now, they're for Diwali." "Diwali?" asked Samantha. "Yes," said Nanny Piggins, "the festival of lights as celebrated in India." "I thought crepes were French," said Michael. "Oh, they are French," said Nanny Piggins. "But France isn't in India, is it?" asked Michael. He was getting seriously confused. "No, France is still in Europe, to the best of my knowledge," said Nanny Piggins. "No, but I'm making crepe suzette." I still don't follow," said Derek. "Crepe suzette are flaming pancakes," said Nanny Piggins. "To celebrate Diwali, Indian people light candles and put them outside their house. It's to symbolise the triumph of light over darkness and good over evil." "Oh, that sounds nice and pretty as well," said Samantha. "It is," said Nanny Piggins. "Plus fire is always so satisfying." "But dangerous," added Derek. "Yes, all the best things are dangerous," said Nanny Piggins. "I found that out the hard way when I worked at the circus. You have no idea how many occupational health and safety rules you have to ignore to be a professional flying pig." "But what has Diwali got to do with pancakes?" asked Michael. "Oh, absolutely nothing," said Nanny Piggins. "But I don't have any candles. Your father confiscated them all after the time I tried to use candles to raise the ghost of Joseph Fry, the inventor of the first solid chocolate bar, and accidentally set fire to the curtains in the living room. Obviously, I have to set fire to something and put it outside the house to celebrate the festival. I don't want our Indian neighbours to feel that we're unsupportive, not when they have such a wonderful culture. Do you know how many delicious desserts, puddings and sweets come from Indian culture? The answer is a lot. There's gulab jamun, barfi, laddu, jalami, halwa, kheer, and so many more. We're so lucky to live in a dessert-diverse world." "I didn't know you knew so much about Diwali," said Derek. "Of course I do," said Nanny Piggins. "Because after all, one of my relatives was there at the very first Festival of Lights, all those many years ago." "They were?" said Samantha. "Oh, yes, you remember the story of my cousin Sita," said Nanny Piggins. "The impossibly beautiful princess whose father married her off to the first man who could string his bow." "Oh, yeah, Rama," said Derek. Wasn't he blue? That's right, because he was the avatar of the god Vishnu, said Nanny Piggins. Oh, you're going to have to tell us the whole story, said Michael. I'm so confused already. All right, I will, said Nanny Piggins. Here, you better eat some of the gulab jamun I made earlier to get you in the mood. So the children sat and ate their syrup-soaked dumplings, and Nanny Piggins began her tale. We'll pick up where we left off. Rama and his brother Laxmana had just spent several years in the forest killing demons for a sage. In exchange, the wise sage taught them history, how to use magical weapons, and most importantly, the ancient art of cake baking. On the way home, as we know, Rama strung the unbendable bow for a neighbouring king, and in doing so won the right to marry the king's daughter, Sita, who just happened to be the most beautiful person inside and out, and the avatar of the goddess Lakshmi. Unfortunately, as is so often the way with all stories, while these wonderful things were happening on their travels, there was also some dreadful things happening back home. How dreadful? Asked Michael. Well, you may remember that Rama's father, the king, was very old when he had children. So now that his sons were all grown up, he was really, really old. So the king was starting to think about handing his crown on to one of his sons. And he was obviously going to choose Rama because Rama was the strongest, the smartest, the wisest, and the best at stringing bows. Plus he was blue, said Michael. Yes, agreed Nanny Piggins, he was blue, because of being the avatar to the god Vishnu, and being the avatar of a god probably had a bit to do with why he was so good at everything. Now, Rama had 2 other brothers, as well as Lakshmana, so there were 4 of them altogether, and the other brothers were fine with this arrangement. They knew Rama was better at everything, but as well as being strong and wise and clever, he was also a really top bloke, so the brothers were happy for him to become king. But one of the stepmothers was not. She realised when Rama became king, her son would become less important, which would mean that she was less important, and she didn't want that. Now, I don't want you to think too harshly of the stepmother. She was actually totally epic in her own right. Back in the day, when she first married the king, he'd had to rush off and fight a war, and his enemy had used sorcery so that they could attack him from 10 sides at once, which is really very unfair because it's cheating. The king had to spin his chariot in circles so he could fight them all off at once. And while he was spinning the chariot, the axle broke and the wheel was about to fly off. The stepmother saw this, and to save the day, she stuck her own thumb in the wheel to act as an axle, allowing her husband to win the battle. Wow, said Samantha. I bet her thumb hurt after that, said Michael. Yes, and the king was so grateful, he promised his wife 2 boons. What's a boon? Asked Michael. Well, it's basically a wish, said Nanny Piggins, a promise that will be fulfilled. Now, the stepmother didn't need anything at the time. Being a queen, she had a lot of cool stuff already. So she said she'd just hold on to her boon and use it in the future when she could think of something. The king agreed, and they both forgot about it. Until years later, when the king decided to make Rama the next king, and the stepmother knew she had to do something, and do it quickly. So she went to the king that day and requested that he grant her her boon. Now the king was a good king, so naturally said, "Of course, my darling wife, whatever you want, I shall make it yours. You earned those boons the hard way with your valiant thumb all those years ago." "Thank you," said the wife. "What I want is for you to make my son Bharata the king and not Rama." "What?" said the king. "Well, Bharata is very nice, but Rama is the best at everything. And he's blue, so he goes with all the furnishings." "I don't care," said the stepmother. "You promised me 2 boons, and one of them will be that you will make my son Bharata the king." The king was distraught, but he was a man of honour. He had promised the stepmother a boon, so he must fulfil it. "I must make it so, although it will break my heart," said the king. "But when Bharata is the king and no doubt making dreadful decisions because he's not qualified, at least I will have my son Rama by my side to comfort me." "Oh no, that won't work," said the stepmother, "because all the people love Rama more than Bharata. So for my second boon, I request that you banish Rama to live in the woods for 14 years. "No," gasped the king. "Yes," declared the queen. "Ooh, you're such a meanie," said the king. "I'm just doing what's best for my son," said the queen. Just then her son, Bharata, burst into the room himself. "Mum, what's this I hear about you blackmailing Dad into making me the king?" It's all agreed. You'll be crowned tomorrow, said the stepmother. But I don't want to be the king, said Bharata. That's ridiculous. Rama is much better at everything. He'll be much better at ruling over everybody. My son, said the king, what's done is done. I promised your mother 2 boons. You wouldn't have your father break his word, would you? This is ridiculous, said Bharata. Just then Rama returned. Rama, you got to speak to Dad, said Bharata. He wants to make me king because he promised my mother 2 boons and he doesn't want to be seen to be dishonourable. But I don't want to be king. You'd be so much better at it than me. Rama paused and considered this. No, I must defend my father's honour, declared Rama. I shall willingly go into the woods and accept that I am banished for 14 years. Oh, please, we all like Dad and we all want him to have lots of honour, said Bharata. But we're meant to be running a country here. Surely good governance is more important. Surely the better man should have the job. No, my fate has been decided, said Rama. You just don't want to run a country, do you, accused Bharata. You just want to go camping in the woods for 14 years so you can get out of going to lots of boring meetings. Well, maybe, conceded Rama. I do like camping, but Dad's honour is important too. Fine. Well, I refuse to be king, said Bharata. If Rama is going to be exiled for 14 years, then I will be too. I'm going into exile in a totally different direction. Now, there's no need to throw an exile tantrum, urged the king. Too late, I'm doing it, said Bharata, and he stormed off. Rama turned to his own wife. Sita, I know we have only just got married, but I now have to go and live in the forest for 14 years to preserve my father's honour. I know this isn't an ideal start to our marriage, but at least you can live here in luxury in the palace with my family. I'll see you in 14 years. Hang about, said Sita. I don't think so. I agreed to marry you, not your nutty family with their crazy ideas about honour and boons and sticking their thumbs in places. You're the one the sage taught how to make magnificent cakes and desserts, and you promised to make them for me. So if you're going to the forest, I'm going with you. But there are beasts and demons in the forest, said Rama. Have you seen your stepmother? Asked Sita. I think I'd be safer in the forest with the beasts and the demons. I'm coming too, said Lakshmana. There's no need for 3 of us to be banished, said Rama. Oh, I'm not doing it for you, said Lakshmana. I just really like camping. All right, fair enough, said Rama. And so they went off to wander the forest for 14 years. Over the years, they followed the river and built shelters as they went. And there were, of course, encounters with many beasts and demons along the way. But Rama was super strong and good-looking and wise, so they all rubbed along quite nicely. Until one day, about 10 years later, when Rama and Lakshmana were hunting in the forest, they were spotted by the evil demoness, Shurpanakha. And Rama and Lakshmana were so handsome, she was immediately smitten with them both. She took the form of a beautiful woman and approached them. She walked straight up to them and asked them if they wanted to marry her. Now, the brothers were naturally wary of women who appear out of nowhere and offer marriage proposals in the woods, so, of course, they said no. Rama said that he didn't want to marry her because he was already married to Sita, and Sita was the most beautiful woman in the world. And Lakshmana said he didn't want to marry her because he was very diplomatic here. He said he couldn't marry her because she was too good for him. Now, it turns out that evil demonesses do not like having their marriage proposals turned down. So she immediately flew into a rage. She turned back into her evil demoness form and attacked them, slashing at them with her demon claws and declaring that she was going to kill Sita. Now, getting attacked by a demon is very unpleasant. There's a lot of flapping and scratching and death threats. So Lakshmana naturally desperately wanted the whole thing to stop, and he lashed out at Shurpanakha, slicing off her nose and ears. Oh, I know she was an evil demon, but that's pretty horrible. And weird, said Derek. Yes, agreed Nanny Piggins. Cruelty to animals is always wrong. But remember, this was an evil demoness intent on murder, so the normal rules of courtesy probably don't apply. And it did get Shurpanakha to drop the whole marriage idea, because now she didn't want marriage. She wanted something else. She wanted revenge. And we'll leave the story there. Hey, you can't leave us on a cliffhanger, protested Derek. Of course I can, said Nanny Piggins. If I don't stop now, these crepes won't set fire to themselves, you know. Come on, you better help me taste test the first batch. I thought they were decorative flaming pancakes, said Samantha. I didn't realise we'd get to eat them as well. Of course we're going to eat them, said Nanny Piggins. Diwali is all about light overcoming darkness and good triumphing over evil. Crepe Suzette tastes seriously good, so it would be evil, not to eat them. The end. Time for bed. All right, well, we'll leave it there. I hope you enjoyed that one, and I'll come back next week with the second half of this story about Diwali. Until next time, goodbye. Hello, it's me again. If you enjoyed listening to Bedtime Stories with R.A. Spratt, it would be really helpful if you could like, subscribe, follow, and or review the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to now. Every little one of those digital affirmations helps, and the bigger this podcast gets, the more I can justify procrastinating from my real job to keep bringing these stories to you. Thank you.